All right. It says I'm live coming at you on a Sunday evening, 7:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, February 27th in the year of our Lord 2022. I actually had a whole setup going. I'm aggravated. So I tried to get this going at 6 o'clock. I was ready to go, had a second camera down so I could like go through and talk a little elementals with you and have some fun with that. And my computer, all of a sudden, Windows did a force update that took about 20 minutes to update. And then I had to go in and redo all my security, all my passwords. Uh, had to get to 2 and 3 step verifications on stuff. And it just went on and on. And I'm like, well, I don't have all night. So I guess we're just going to be shooting from the hip and seeing what's going on here. So shoot me a comment there. Let me know you can hear me. Let me know you're out there. And we're going to move forward because, if you got some questions, we can do some Q&A tonight and stuff. But I got a few things to show and a few things to talk about that I'm actually excited about. Graphic Man. Elementals, my dear Watson. Exactly. Graphic Man, since you're out there, I was not on your last show because I had the bronchitis. And then the week before that, work had sent me to Petersburg, which is a 600-mile round trip from where I live. Hopefully, they won't screw me and I'll be able to come on Wednesday night if you're feeling like having me on. Anyway, Graphic Man has a great channel. Graphic Man every Wednesday has a live show with the fossils, which everybody should be checking out, which is fantastic, right? So it's good stuff, man. Oh, great. Awesome. Okay. So basically, in my travels, work ended up sending me, like I just said a minute ago, 600 miles round trip in one day for several reasons. Part of my job is I'm a social worker. I have to see certain clients at certain times and a certain deadline. And we had a snafu where I ended up having to do it all in one day this time. So on the way back, I got up at 5:30 in the morning, did the first half of it. On the way back, I started feeling a little bit. I ended up stopping a couple times, and I stopped at a newish comic store, which I think has been open about 5 months, but they've been doing comic book conventions, I think, for 5 years called Big Lit Comics. Hey, Sequential Geeks out there. What's up, man? Hey, John. What's up, John? And I decided to kind of stop in there. I had to break up the trip, and I didn't really want to. I was ready to get home, but we did it. And they opened up a comic book shop after having these fantastic, I think they do them 2 to 3 times a year, comic book conventions where they have some really great guests. I met Ron Mars a few years ago. I know I met some other people there. They have Power Ranger actors there, and they just had one earlier in the month I didn't get to go to. I woke up and just didn't feel like making the drive, to be honest with you, and which was sad. They had a few legends there. Trina Robbins was there. I'd like to have seen her. But on the way back, I walked into their shop, and it's a nice shop. Nice, big, a lot of space, clean, bright. They have music playing. 4 or 5 people were working there, I guess, with the owner or co-owners or whatever it works. And, very friendly. And I walked around, but I could not make sense of their pricing. Their back issues, which normally would be like dollar bins and stuff anywhere else I have been, are all $4 a piece. And then they would have random shelves and things around where they'd have random comics and keys and stuff. And if I had to guess, and it is a guess, let me tell you, I couldn't make sense of their pricing because they had certain books I thought should have been $25, $30, and then they had other books that were a little bit more, a little bit less. And I sort of had the feeling they get on YouTube a lot and find the keys and stuff. That's what they had pulled around there. Um, and one of the things I found, I'll go ahead and tell you, I paid $10 for it. I thought it should have been more. Was this Rip Hunter Time Master from 1965, number 25. And I couldn't believe this was so cheap, actually, considering the condition in it. Of course, it's in Mylar, so it looks like it's high def, but this is probably a very good to very good, maybe lower, maybe a fine, Anyway, copy of it, and I love my time traveling stories. I love my Rip Hunter. I'm still mad that they ended up making Booster Gold his dad. I hope that's not been something that's still canon, So that was back during the 52, I think, or something. I don't know. Anyway, Oh man, that weekly series that came out, called 52. But anyway, I was just like tickled to death to find this, and for $10, I was like, sure, I'll do that. So I grabbed it, and it has the publication, I guess, tax form or whatever it is for tax purposes or whatever, where they take a section of the comic book and they have all the legal mumbo jumbo, and they talk about how many. There we go. Computer is still trying to update and still trying to get security clearances. So bear with me. So anyway, but it has the legal stuff in there. And apparently they put out 313,000 copies of this issue on newsstands and wherever comics were sold back in the day. 313,000, 12 cents a piece. And I'm sure the grocery stores and anybody that had a newsstand, drugstores, and wherever you could find the comics back in the day, I'm sure they weren't paying the 12 cents, probably much less than that. So they'd make a profit and stuff. But that's just amazing. Just amazing to me. I think by the 70s, I think they were doing like 200,000 issue print runs. So I don't know. That's just going by like what I've read in comics and stuff, right? The other thing I picked up, and I'm slowly getting this. I'm a huge Sam Keith fan. And I didn't even know this had happened, but towards the last year or two, Marvel Comics Presents in the late 80s, early 90s, they brought in Sam Keith with Peter David, and he did this great Wolverine story and hung around doing covers and everything. And apparently they had, in this anthology series, they had Wolverine and Venom going against each other there for a couple of issues. So I just kind of picked these up where I can. And when I found them in some dollar boxes at the Hillsville Flea Market, I ended up getting it online, looking around, and didn't realize people had rediscovered this and were also trying to get them. So they're not huge keys, but for your actual collectors, people who are into Venom, people who are into Wolverine, who are into Marvel General, people who are into Sam Keith, of course, they're trying to hurry up and get these issues. So I have 2 or 3 now. It's part of the hunt, part of the fun, something to keep an eye out for. So we got those. Okay. So one of the things I want to talk about here a minute is the 40th anniversary of Heroes Con is coming up down in Charlottesville, North Carolina. And I'll do some sharing here in a minute. Sorry. Okay. All right. It's not pertaining to me, right? Now, Heroes Con, I honestly cannot remember my first one that I went to. The Heroes Con in Charlotte's been going on since 1982 by a guy named Shelton Drum. Shelton Drum is sort of a minor celebrity in the old school comic book community. Going off the top of my head, in the early 70s, he decided he was going to be he's going to work in comics. He actually got on a bus or something, went to New York, did the tour of Marvel, and then realized his talent was too limited. So he ended up opening this comic book shop in Charlotte. And then he was buying up everything. He was getting to know comic book creators. He was going out and he was buying original art. And he's been doing this, like I said, since the 70s. And his first Heroes Con was in 1982. And it's grown since then. And I got there sometime in the 90s. And I was the guy who, when I would go to these cons, I'd go on Sunday because that was a cheap day. My head would be in a box and it would be driving back. Still had a good time, would look around. Every now and then I would see somebody I know or something that was in the 90s. It was probably around 2001 I decided to get a few books signed by Roy Thomas and a few other people, and then I was out just because of the experience. I look at ink on a comic book, and I still think it degrades the comic book. Okay, I mean, it's graffiti when I see it and stuff, right? But every now and then I would try to talk and have, I'm just, I don't know how to explain how I was, man. I just was in and out, right? And this is where a lot of my old school perceptions of the hobby and things pertaining to the hobby before it was even considered a culture, where it comes from, where it was from a more pure place. It was all about the comic books, right? But this was still during a time when you had to have a lot of nerve and a lot of love for what you were doing and a lot of courage to cosplay. There was not that many cosplayers. Now, this is from the 90s. I'm going to go ahead and shoot and say 1995, but where I'm still unpacking, where we moved here in October, bought this house and stuff, I'm finally getting to go through some boxes I haven't opened in years. And I'm finding doubles and stuff of this. But in 1995, I ran into this couple. Let that focus in. And like I said, this is definitely the 90s, maybe not 95. I don't know, right? But this is a husband and wife team that you see here, right? And you see the love that they had, the simplicity they have. And that lady actually made me very shy because I still was not used to seeing someone showing that much thigh in public back then. But they were cool about it. And she could tell you everything about Scarlet Witch. He could tell you everything about the Flash, and that's all they knew. They were casual readers, if anything. But when it came to the characters that they dressed up as, this was their thing, and that to me is what should be part of the cosplay. Knowing who you're dressing up as and being in character a little bit, right? Skip up here to 2001, and what was happening is I was married to my first wife, and it wasn't in Charlotte, but it was in another city, probably about an hour and a half away from Charlotte. We were doing a wedding. The wedding was going to be on a Sunday, right? So I got up early Saturday, and everybody was hanging out with the ex-wife's family. And I went to Heroes Con for the day, and I was probably back by 3 or 4 o'clock, which was fantastic. But I had a camera. I had a disposable camera. We had 3 or 4 of them because it was a wedding, of course. So I kind of took one of those and decided to kind of look around. I remember I bought a bunch of upgraded a lot of my old Justice League books when I was a kid. Got a lot of Defenders. I had a pretty good stack. I was happy as can be. Nothing was really bagged and stuff. And I got out there and I had pictures of me and Kim DeMolder. I think. Oh man, David Mack might have been there and a few other people when I'm slowly starting to find these, right? So there was a comic, and I think this comic is still going online, man, but it's called Deep Fried. And Peanuts, Charlie Brown and Snoopy and all of them, huge, huge fan of those since I was like 3 and 4 years old. That is no exaggeration and stuff, right? I could turn this camera around and show you some of my Peanuts collection and my VHS and DVDs lying around here and stuff. But anyway, back when holidays came around, seeing Charlie Brown and them was a treat, especially around Christmas. I think this guy's name was Jason. This was the creator, and what he had done is he had like a one shot or something, if I remember right. That just kind of pertained to, like, he took the Peanuts universe, if you will, had all the characters grown up, and turned Charlie Brown into some kind of like Cable gun-toting character. And he decided to dress up like him, which I thought was just cool. Oh, and I remember he was right beside of another cat you may have heard of, the creator of Evil Ernie and Lady Death, who I talked to that guy for a little bit, and you might know who that is. So, and ended up having a great talk with him. Little did I know how big of a cult following he had. I definitely would have got my picture with him, and I can't believe I'm going blank on his name. It's coming back as I'm talking to you, but the creator of Evil Ernie and Lady Death were there, right? So I ended up talking to Roy Thomas in Sal Buscema that year. I remember that's why I was determined to get there. I think Sal Buscema was there, right? He had a huge line. So I got through to talk to Sal Buscema, who was a fantastic dude. But Roy Thomas was the one that I stood over there, got him to sign some All-Star Squadron for me and a few little things. He signed my Conan the Destroyer DVD, and I got a lot of stories. You don't talk to Roy, you listen with Roy. You ask a question, and then he will go on and he'll give you tons of backstory. And I got the entire backstory on how Grace Jones ended up getting the part here. I think it was him and Jerry. He called him Gary Conway. A lot of people say Jerry Conway, but I got Gary Conway right from Roy Thomas when he was telling the story. But anyway, he was talking about how they were trying to write an authentic Conan story that is like Robert E. Howard. And of course, they were Hollywooding it up. And that's why we got that fiasco of Conan the Destroyer. And one of the saving graces is when they were trying to explain that you can't recast a character that's straight out of the Nubians, I think is what he was calling them. His words, not mine. But he was trying to explain to him, you got to cast somebody like Grace Jones. So they just went ahead and got Grace Jones, and that's how she ended up being in the movie. But I think I ended up talking to him like 30 minutes while listening to him, and he was signing things and telling the story, and people were crying around and stuff. It was very cool. And this is the infamous story. Okay, there we go. This is Joe Sennett. And when I saw Joe Sennett, it was my first time ever at these cons having a fanboy moment. Okay, this is Joe Sennett. This is the guy that inked Jack Kirby. This was the guy that was with the Fantastic Four during the Silver Age and the Bronze Age, and he popped up with Burn on there and stuff, and it was just ready to go, man. And I bought a print off of him of Mephisto he did and talked to him. Meanwhile, he is such a nice guy and a gentleman. He's sitting there looking at me like, and right here beside of me is Nick Cardy. Joe Sennett and Nick Cardy were hanging out. And I knew who Nick Cardy was, but I couldn't take my eyes off of Joe Sennett. I just said, "Hey, nice to meet you. How are you doing?" And completely missed my chance to talk to Nick Cardy. I was young, man. I was young. Okay. So we're going to shoot up to, I think, 2005, 2006. And this is what put me back in putting my head back in the boxes and stuff, man, because this was actually very sad. It had made the internet news that Dave Cockrum had ended up in a VA hospital, and it was like he was just dumped there, and his family and stuff was trying to get him out, and people were trying to raise money, and he was very sick. I can't remember if it was diabetes or what happened was, right? So the news came out that Dave's been saved. We got him out. Everybody got him out. People donated money, whatever happened. This is like 2005, 2006, right? So I make the trip down. I had a couple of trips where I got with some of my friends over the years, and we'd pile up, Curtis and Dave and all them, stuff like that, and we'd get down there and we'd get in the comics. We'd make the trip back and everything. And then I started going back around to see creators and stuff, right? And I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version. There's all kinds of stuff during those years, right? So I walk up to Dave Cockrum, and I'm all excited to see him, and I'm ready to talk to him, and he's just sitting there slowly drawing with his head down. And then I look closer, and he's in a wheelchair, and his feet are wrapped up poorly. And I was just like, I'm very glad you're doing better, and I'm glad you got out of that hospital. And he was like, thank you. And he just sadly looked down and started drawing again, right? So he ended up dying a couple months later. And it was the saddest thing I had seen, to the point where I was like, my head was back into the boxes. And over the years, got on YouTube, people were talking about signatures. We were talking about creators we had met. I was listening to the stories of people meeting creators, and it was probably be around 2013 before I would go out there again and start meeting creators and stuff, man, because this image just killed me of Dave Cockrum. I was thinking about everything he'd done in the Legion, in the X-Men, and what he did in comics and things like that. It was so sad. So yeah, it's cool to find some pictures and the reminisce and stuff, man. So Heroes Con's coming, and I'm gonna share a screen here in a minute. Let's take a look at who's here. I see some very incredible people out there. All right, the computer is acting slow. It's still trying to recover from the Windows update that happened right when I got ready to start this. All right, Prime Collector 1 is here. Hey Tim, do you remember an eBay seller? That's a new face. Hey, Tim, do you remember an eBay? I know seller named Brett Comic Pile. I know he's based out of Virginia, Maryland. Nope, do not remember him. Brian Pluto, that's it. That was the great creator I met, who I thought was just a freaking cool dude. I remember we talked some rock. We talked some metal. We talked about some metal music, a little dancing. Talked about some hardcore stuff, man. And the guy, I thought he was just freaking awesome when I met him. So Brian Pluto, back in the day, I thought he was awesome when I met him. Victor Thomas is on it also. What's up, Victor? Solid 4-string Ben is here. Hey, I used to order from Brett's Comic Pile quite a bit. So we got somebody that remembers him. Yeah. Can't say it better. Rest in peace, Joe Sennett. That was a sad day. Cool. I wonder what happened to him. I bought a lot of comics from him. Okay, they're talking about this eBay seller. Oh, nice. So that's what I like about the community. That's what I like about the community part of this. Yep. So, yeah, Shannon, it was real sad, and it was even sadder to see him, especially when you thought he had been saved. You know what I mean? Like, you thought he survived, everything was going to be cool. He got out of that spot, and yeah, like I said, he died a few months ago. The Simply Incredible podcast is out there. Our Frisbee golfer, I think that's what it's called. Nice to see you, man. Okay, Pluto is awesome. Good. I'm glad to hear that I just didn't catch him on a good day, and that's how he is and stuff, right? That's awesome. So I showed that Heroes Con stuff. Let's go to screen share. Is it going to let me? Well, that's strange. Hold on, guys. Holy crap, you're not going to believe this, but I do not have, there it is. All right. Hopefully you guys can see this. Blow it up there a little bit more. We'll see. Nope, it's not going to make a difference. Well, anyway, I'm going to read this to you. Okay. So this is the 40th anniversary. They have not had Heroes Con in 2 years. And actually, I think the last time that I was there was 2018. 2018, I went on a Friday, and believe it or not, Heroes Con has, it's been a journey for the Heroes Con. There was years where it blew up, and there was years where it was a smaller show. There was times it was underwhelming. There was times it was average, and there was more times than anything other where I thought it was a fantastic show. So I went in 2018 and got everything done on a Friday. Came back and ended up going on a date with the person who become my wife. I missed 2019 because I was getting engaged. That was our 1 year anniversary. I went to Hungry Mother's Park, rented a canoe, took her out in the middle of a lake, and proposed to her. And then the next year we had COVID, so they didn't have it. That's 2020. 2021, they did not have it. They canceled, and because they had COVID also. Now I'm not sure if I'm remembering everything right. That's how it is. But here's the 40th anniversary. And here are the featured guests thus far. And okay, this of course takes place June 24th and to the 26th this year. Hopefully everything's going to be cool. But they have John Romita Jr., which I think this may be his first time there. I'm not sure. But I'm excited about Chris Bacalo being there. We're going to have Daryl Banks, John Beatty, Richard Case. Richard Case is the guy that did, I've met him a couple times at some smaller shows. He's the guy that did Doom Patrol with Grant Morrison. Nancy Collins is going to be there. One of my buddies, Anderson, called me up yesterday, said he wasn't sure about going, but he does have the Swamp Thing omnibus that came out of all of Nancy's Swamp Thing stuff. Apparently, there's a lot of people that really love her Swamp Thing run. I'm not one of them. It just never really captured me. Tom DeFalco is going to be there. Todd DeZango, Francesco Francavilla, Ron Friends. Now, I'm really thinking about digging out some Tom DeFalco and Ron Friends stuff, right? From back in the 80s and stuff, right? Very cool to see them. Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. I've met him before. The guy's a sweetheart. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Larry Hama is going to be there for you G.I. Joe nuts. Craig Hamilton. I actually have Craig Hamilton's Aquaman miniseries from the mid 80s, where Aquaman got his blue costume, and I think he's done some Fable stuff. So Tony Harris, I met him a couple of times, Starman fan. Stuart Amonin, I hope I'm saying that right, is there. I actually looked up and bought some of his revolutionary comics with their rock and roll comics series where they would do the origins, unofficial biographies of rock and roll bands. I picked up the Guns N' Roses one when it came out because I was a Guns N' Roses fan, and actually ended up being him in there. This guy went on to do Spider-Man and Superman, and I think he wrote a lot of Spider. The guy's got a huge bibliography, so it's worth going through your collection to see if might as well. Bob McLeod. He's usually a staple of that place. Carl Potts is there. I've got some Alien Legion stuff. I think I might ask him to sign if I do go down there. Don Rosa is always there. The infamous Don Rosa. Everybody's got a story about this guy being a bigger legend in his mind than what he really is, apparently. And he's already a legend. So Larry Stroman's going to be there. I think that's familiar. That's going to be cool. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on with Heroes Con here. Let's make sure there's no other announcements and stuff. But where this is the 40th anniversary, I'm really feeling like when it comes to the bigger cons, where I've gone to Heroes Con, I'm probably going to go ahead and go the Fantastic 40th. Probably going to go ahead and go check it out. It's the 40th anniversary. Heroes aren't hard to find. That's the comic book shop that Shelton Drum owns there. But I'm probably going to go And then after that, I don't know. I may be done with some of the bigger cons. I'm getting older. Um, getting older. You know how it is. Let me get this here. There we go. Getting older, and I mean, how much more do you really need? I'm getting to the point of this where I just want to kind of do some fill-in issues, complete some runs. I've got some things where I need 2 issues here to complete a run, like 2 issues with my Hitman. I need probably like 5 issues for these elementals and things like that. It's getting to where I'm doing fill-in issues and some minor collections if there's something I'm really wanting to read and stuff, right? Well, maybe there'll be a resurgence in the creativity of today's comic books that can pull me back in. You know what I'm saying? But I'm getting to where I'm very happy going to smaller cons when they pop up around here, like in Dublin, Virginia, Hillsville, Virginia, a few here and there in Roanoke. There's a one in Bristol now. I can draw a 2.5 hour a circle. I can draw a circle from the center of my house on a map, and within 2.5 hours, I have all these little tiny cons that pop up through the years and stuff, right? And of course, Roanoke's got the Big Lick Comic Con I've been talking about, where that seems to be growing and they're getting more and more guests in and stuff like that. But yeah, 40 years is just an impressive run. Good for them, man. That's awesome. Okay, let me see. What we got here? Simply Incredible Podcast. I missed Heroes so much. Feels like it's been forever. I hear you. I still have my tickets I paid for 2 years ago. I bet they will honor those. Yep. Dave Cockrum on the Futurians. Yes, yes. Todd Lauren is the founder of Revolutionary Comics out of Detroit area. That is cool. That is so cool. I just love Sequential Geek that somebody else remembers Revolutionary Comics and stuff, right? I'm gonna have to dig them out. They're in one of these little boxes now. I need to get some stuff signed by Beatty and Zek if they both make it again. I met Zek up in Baltimore Con, so it'd be great to see him pop back up. I'm going to have to make it a point to hit up those cons in Virginia more often. I tell you what, man, after going to Baltimore Con as a more or less as a guest of Charlton 66, check out his channel. I got to say, man, Baltimore Con was fantastic. Heroes Con is fantastic. And it's just amazing how they both have a different feel. Like it's like these conventions are almost living, breathing entities. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain. I think everybody should be able to feel the magic of a huge comic book convention with all the people there and all the sights and even the smells, are unique. Just the community, the people that you see enjoying themselves, all it's just they're magic, man. They really are magic, and I feel very lucky to live. And I get philosophical about this stuff. I get existential. I don't care, man. I feel very lucky to live in a time where we have these comic book conventions to go to. I really wish I could have been old enough, early enough to go to like the earlier ones. You know what I mean? Like when they were really first starting out and it was more pure and stuff like that. But what we have now is just fantastic. It really is. Just really fantastic. Great things to go to. And there's also the magic of the smaller cons. I mean, it's just so great. The grassroots all the way up to the big boys. They're all good. They're all good. All right. Let me see. I need to go to Baltimore. Haven't been there. I went to 2 in a row. Had a fantastic time both times. Really great. Actually, I spazzed out at one because I lost my wallet. And it turned out the dealer had kept my wallet. I tell you what, man, you drive all that way to get there, and then you get up early to go. You kind of lose it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's taxing. It's taxing. You work 5 days a week, and then you drive 5 hours, 7.5 hours to get there. You know what I mean? And then get up early the next morning. Okay. Of course, I'm getting text while I'm doing a show. It's now it's an official Howler Mouse show, right? Okay, so one of the books of the 80s, and I've talked about the magic of the 80s, not just with what you found on the newsstand and to a certain extent, not just with the DC and the Marvel, right? But in the 90s with Image, books started becoming called indies, independent books. You know what I mean? Creator owned was the thing. The image revolution hit and things really changed. But when you go before that, during the 80s, anything that would be we consider an indie book was called alternative. They were called alternative comics, and I really enjoy those books that came out during the alternative era, right? Because you had your Captain America and Superman stories, and despite the fact that Watchmen was coming in and Dark Knight was coming in and our books were growing up and things, you had these themes where you would pick up an alternative book. And especially if you were a kid, 12, 13, 14, 15, reading these, they had this they had that feeling of revolution, of rebellion. Like you felt like you shouldn't be reading this. You feel like this comic with its mature themes and realistic violence and sex and things, the things that were going on in it and stuff, and the real life torture of some of these characters and stuff. They had real life elements in there, even though some of them were still kind of hokey and badly drawn. They were raw, you know what I mean? And they just had this magic to them when I finally got my hands on them. And one of the first ones that I really enjoyed was this Elementals #3. This is Elementals Volume 2. I think this came out in '88. And I got it, I think I was, maybe it was '89. I think I was 15, getting ready to turn 16. So it was early '89 probably, but I also finally got my hands on my first issue of Sandman the same time that I bought this, right? And this cover just looked at me. I mean, I knew who Bill Willingham was because he'd been doing some work on Green Lantern, especially during Millennium, you know, earlier, couple years earlier than this. I also knew him from, but this was the dude that I discovered in my Dungeons and Dragons books, right? Bill Willingham had done Dungeons and Dragons, and then I would see these advertisements for another role playing game called Villains and Vigilantes, and that was Bill Willingham and stuff. And this guy ended up going on into the future, and he did Fables, right? So this is like one of the first real alternative books I got my hands on that was mine, not somebody else's that I got to flip through in like 5 seconds and all this stuff to get through and stuff, right? And I was so dumb that I didn't know that you could peel that UPC symbol off, right? So yeah, when you bought these at Walden Books or wherever I was at, but yeah, the UPC symbol, they had these stickers on there that they put on there, and you were supposed to peel them off. And and after 30 years, this thing has seeped in there. There's no getting it off. You know what I'm saying? But that's okay. I ended up getting an upgrade, right? But you talk about a dark book, because in the early '80s, Bill Willingham, that's right. Yes, Bill Willingham, right? So this was the book that I'm probably going to revisit in a future stream, if not do just a out and outright little video to get through this and stuff, right? But it came out in 3 volumes and it tackled child abuse and stuff. But the biggest thing is it was from Comico. Now, for years I heard it called Comico. That's the company, Comico. But after getting on here on YouTube and having some seasoned collectors get on there, I was told it's Comico. But Elementals came out, I think, around '84. Their first appearance was like in '83 in a Justice Machine, another Comico, a Justice Machine annual, I think. I have it here somewhere, but this is the Justice Machine with the Elementals 4-issue miniseries and stuff, right? But they all have wraparound covers, right? And it came in there and it's the 4 elements, right? You had Masters of Disaster and Batman and the Outsiders. I saw some other books where the theme was earth, water, fire, wind, air, you know, and all this stuff. And this was right in the middle. This came out right in the middle where the X-Men and the Teen Titans were huge. And the '80s were becoming their own identity finally. And every team was supposed to have like certain tropes, right? You had Robin or Captain America, low-powered heroes, if any powers at all, Cyclops, who were the leader. They made it for being the leader, even though they were probably the weakest member of the team, right? You had to have a feral. You had to have somebody, you had to have that feral character and stuff, right? Vixen, Wolverine, Wolfsbane. We can go on. And these tropes lasted forever. You had to have a strong man. You had to have a strong man. And then you had to have like that dark character who stayed on the side, right? But these guys started out feeling like this bright, nice, shiny little superhero thing. And their names are Morningstar, Vortex, Fathom, and Monolith, right? And Like I said, I'm probably going to go more in depth into it, right? But what had happened is that there was this evil. This starts out feeling like, hey, these are just this is hey, Eric Breen's here. Nice. So they start out like little origin stories here. You get four people who are killed brutally. The little 12-year-old boy who turns into Monolith, the big rock creature, if you will, dies in a landslide. Vortex, I think, is like flying a jet and he dies like that. Fathom is like, I think, a model. And I haven't read and reread these and stuff, right? I probably read these twice that I have so far, but the first 5 issues should be in everybody's collection. Fathom was like a model who drowned, and in Morningstar, I think it was like a cop or a detective who burned to death and stuff, right? But I was thinking, man, that's some brutal origins, right? You get killed by the element, then you're brought back to life, and you have those elemental powers. And it turns out that there's a sorcerer. Now, this isn't your Doctor Strange magic world, right? This is some deep demonic occult stuff that Bill Willingham is tapping into, to where that's where you feel like you shouldn't be reading this, man. Uh, and in a time where people were yelling that Dungeons and Dragons would have you possessed by demons and it's the devil's game and all this stuff like that, in this comic book, they have a real sorcerer pulling up real demons and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's real evil. So he's casting the spell, and I can't remember what it was. Anyway, he's casting the spell or anything like that, and the world feels the evil. So the four elemental forces of the earth that you really never see decides they're going to get agents, and they bring them back to life. They don't know why they're back to life. They don't know where their costumes come from, and they set out and they decide that they're going to be going on this mission to go after this evil sorcerer, right? But the evil sorcerer has his own minions, right? And there's a character named Ratman who ends up in the future becoming a member, but he's got like a leotard on with a gigantic R on it. It kind of looks ridiculous, right? But he turns around and he gets a hold of Vortex, and in a black and white silhouette kind of sequence there, he rips into him, opens his chest completely. The military comes in and they fly out Vortex, and you're like, oh God, he's dead. He's dead. And then he actually gives a report where I think Bill Willingham must have called up a doctor to get. He goes into great detail on everything that is ripped up inside of him, to where you're like, oh God, it gets very graphic talking about it stuff. And he comes back to life. Turns out the elementals are immortal, yet they still suffer. Then they end up dealing with fame. They end up dealing with alienation. Monolith ends up turning on the team. And one of the greatest things that got me about this issue number 3 is Captain Cadaver. Okay. Let me get this out here. Captain Cadaver is a vampire, but this will give you an idea of the tone of elementals, right? They bring in a team, an evil government, an evil team. He ends up making a church and preach the bad guys, and he has a team called the Rapture, and each villain is named after a chapter of the Bible. You know what I mean? Like, you have to read that little chapter there or whatever. Anyway, but I'll show you a picture of Rap. Anyway, so this is Captain Cadaver with his little smiley face and stuff. This is a vampire, right? I mean, take that in. This is a vampire. On one hand, with that hood and that smiley face, he looks ridiculous, right? Yet he brings in, how would a vampire actually eat? And this is what made me a fan. I hate to say it, man. When you're 15 years old, this is the stuff, right? But Captain Cadaver ends up just getting a hold of somebody, and he refers to himself as Captain Cadaver. And it just shows how a vampire would actually eat. It's not two little pointy things. I hadn't seen anything that nice and that cool since the movie Vamp with Grace Jones. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but I love how he just refers to himself as Captain Cadaver as he's talking. He's like, oh, yes. And he grabs the guy. Put me in a closet or the cold ground. You just don't keep a good man down. Once again, the fearless Captain Cadaver, undaunted and undead, is free. Join him, boys and girls, in the city of brotherly love on a bloody shopping spree. So yeah, he speaks in his head in rhyme, and he thinks he's a superhero. He's all locked up and he just escaped. So I would sit there and really look at this and wish I had a poster of this to put beside my Guns N' Roses posters back in the day. All right. So there's 3 volumes of this. The first one's really good, I think. The second one is also really good. But then we get into apparently there's some stuff going on behind the scenes where Bill Willingham left. And by the time they got to volume 3, it was just a mess. So I don't think anybody should get volume 3 to be truthful. But what is the point of me talking about this? Why do I think it's important that if you want to get elementals, to get elementals? The guy who was the publisher or owner of Kamiko ended up buying the rights off of Bill Willingham for the elementals. And years ago on YouTube, and I think it was Ain't It Cool News had a YouTube channel, but they were doing an interview on a dock by the ocean or a huge lake with the dude who had the rights to the elementals. And he was like, I'm never going to, I've got the rights and I'm not planning on doing anything with them. Right. This is never going to be reprinted until that guy gives up the rights. This is not going to be reprinted. There's not going to be a show. There's not going to be anything done with this. You just have the comics. So I kind of suggest you get out there and at least check out the first 5 issues of volume 1 of the Elementals to see if it's your thing. Because this is the opposite of what's going on with a lot of other characters and stuff, and people fighting over the rights and stuff like that. This one guy has just bought the rights and he's decided just to hoard them up if he's thinking about it at all. So, yeah, and I think some people have approached him trying to get him to do some stuff with the Elementals, and they're not going to go anywhere. So you have a rare case of there's just so many comics out there of the Elementals. They are acquirable, but I think you ought to get them because the way the back issue market is now, it's so unpredictable. I never see these becoming big dollar books, but there's been other things happening in the last 2 or 3 years that I never thought I would see happening with some back issue books. John Byrne's West Coast Avengers. Okay, I never thought any of those would ever be key books. So there you go, right? Oh, Eric Breen has completed his first run of the Elementals. Congratulations, man. I think I'm going to go ahead and just probably later tonight, I'm probably just going to go ahead and get like on my comic shop or something and go ahead and just finish it out. Okay. All right, guys. If you have some questions, go ahead and ask them, but I'm going to be winding it down for you guys that have just popped in. The show was supposed to have started at 6, but my computer decided to update. The Windows updated on its own, and I had to hurry up and redo all the security measures. It has defaulted to where I have a camera too that it does not pick up anymore. It's like I have a new computer. I'm going to have to go back and fix a few more stuff. So yeah, Windows screwed me over there, man. And so I ended up starting probably an hour and a half later than I wanted to. And now it doesn't pick up all the 2 cameras. It only picks up 1 camera. I don't know I think I probably have to do something. I'm not going to get into that. I know what I need to do, man. But anyway, if you guys got some questions, I can answer them real quick. If not, I'm probably going to head on out. And since Eric Breen just jumped in here, yeah, I picked this up. I'll probably bring that. Yeah, Eric Breen. I didn't come 1 week because I got sent to Petersburg by work, which is a 600-mile round trip I had to do, 5:30 to 5:30 in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. And then the week before that, I think I had bronchitis, so I couldn't do it. I tried. Oh, I loved West Coast Avengers, man. I mean, I have a lot of these key books that are popping up are already in my collection because I bought them when they came out because John Byrne, stuff like that. All right, guys, I think that's it. Everybody be cool. Great seeing you. And be excellent to each other, man. Check out the first 5 issues of volume 1 of Elementals. Wouldn't hurt. They're cheap.